So what is that one thing that you would do differently that you have realized from your mistakes?
You learn 100%, you apply at least 50%.
How do people who are in that role today do not get the risk of losing their job?
If there were 10 people in the project in the doer role, we don't need those 10 people now. Maybe 2 or 3 are sufficient because the customer is requesting for apple, and then when I pass on the requirement to the developer ends up building a orange. Now in this process, I never understood who is the banana. The customer is the banana, or am I the banana?
Full fruit salad.
Full fruit salad, because there was a lot of communication gap which was happening.
Although you're trying to learn new skill set, the action orientation should be really, really strong.
We don't even have to write code.
That's actually what Mark Zuckerberg mentioned as well, that Meta's almost 60 to 70% code is now written by AI.
The world is shifting from object-oriented to cloud-oriented to now intent-oriented programming. You have to only express intent. Actually, I would ask the audience to type this. How do you see software development getting done in 2030 or 2035? And there is an astonishing answer which AI is going to provide. Just learning and not applying is criminal wastage of energy, time, money, everything.
Welcome to another episode of DevOps. So if you all don't know us, this is episode 2 of DevOps, where me and my father, as you might know him, we decode a lot of trends, a lot of technologies revolving around AI for architects and developers. So the entire point of this particular podcast is to go into the technological depth as well as achieve sort of an industry breadth. So probably a 360 degrees around AI. And in today's episode, the major question that I would like to ask. In the last episode, we discussed the different types of developers, and I would sort of take that context, but I would also go into what happened with you in the past today. I want to know what sort of your journey looks like. One major important point from that journey. The question that I have for you today is that if you could go back 20 years after the 30 years of experience that you hold today, if you would go back 20 years or 25 years back into your career, you were working as a core developer. So what is that one thing that you would do differently that you have realized from your mistakes? That is the question.
See, basically, you have to understand, I actually started my career as a software trainer.
Right.
Development was not there for first few years in Deccansoft. We were completely doing training. And we were doing quite good amount of training. And side by side, there were small development activities where I was not much involved in the regular day-to-day.
Okay.
There was a team doing the development, but my involvement was very little. But then sometime after 2001 recession, I realized training alone is not going to be the solution to the problem. That is when I got into development. And I still remember my first development was bidding for a project which was worth $4. So just imagine, for $4, I just casually submitted some proposal on some websites. That time it was rentacoder.com. And we won the project, and it was like a celebration, $4 project. That was the starting point. Eventually, the person to whom we did $4 project, we probably did $200,000 also over a period of time.
Is that Srinivas Uncle?
Yes,
yeah,
precisely. And I am still developing projects for him after almost 25 years now. It's more of a family relationship with that was initially a customer. Things apart. But what I'm trying to tell you is we came from training and got into development and did not follow any particular process. We started taking requirement from him, and on the fly we were developing application.
Okay.
He was busy, I was busy, development was happening by the development team. I was taking the requirement, passing on to the team, they were doing. And many times it happened that the customer is requesting for apple. I understand, and then when I pass on the requirement to the developer ends up building a orange. Now in this process, I never understood who is the banana. The customer is the banana, or am I the banana, or the developer is the banana. But apples were becoming orange.
Full fruit salad,
because there was a lot of communication gap which was happening. Though in our days of college, we did learn SDLC, software development lifecycle. We were absolutely away from that process when We were a small organization. So for a few months, I would say probably years also, we were not at all realizing that SDLC is the right form to approach a particular project. And we had to really struggle. So that is one thing which I would definitely advise every small organization who wants to build projects, especially the startups. Give enough importance to proper software development life cycle.
So I think I can add a little small context over here today. So in this particular industry that we are going through right now with the AI era, there are a lot of coders who, although they are part of the SDLC in the biggest MNCs, I'm pretty sure the biggest MNCs follow SDLC, right?
100%. They have a system and process already in place.
Yes. So they are a part of SDLC, but most of them are not even aware that they are part of the SDLC. So basically, they have some role and they're just supposed to do that role. For example, let's take that they're building an application. Backend development is some sort of a role that they have.
See, in last few years, DevOps suddenly got good importance. We have seen that industry is following DevOps practices quite seriously.
Just like a globally accepted technology at this point.
Yes, basically people adapting to Agile methodology of development, where they involve multiple teams rather than working in silos.
Correct.
So what you said is true, but at the same time, it is not 100% true that everybody is not aware of everybody else's task.
Okay.
But yes, it was not that important that everybody should follow what others in the team are doing. They were more focused on their primary work. Yes, they were more focused on what they are supposed to do on a day-to-day activity and on need basis providing consultant. Yes, I would agree that even without knowing proper SDLC processes, people were part of the process and doing their particular job. Yes, I agree to that point.
So just to add a little more context to that, today these roles, let's coin them as the doer roles. Although they might be aware of the entire pipeline, these people are restricted to one particular job and they do that. Let's call that as the doer role. So
yeah, you can talk all the doer role is basically the developers, the testers, right, who are actually doing the job on a day-to-day basis of development of the application.
That's exactly what I mean. So like we discussed in the podcast that we had before this, if you have not watched that, please do. Our episode 1 was a very good pilot episode. Anyway, so as we have discussed in the last episode, we understood how even though today AI is making things easier for the doer roles, these doer roles eventually will have the risk of losing their job because the capabilities that they have built of a doer can easily be taken up by AI. So I want to just ask you this one question where we dive in a little bit deep inside of the question that how can this gap be filled where the doers are being sort of, I wouldn't say not completely, the doers are sort of being replaced by AI. Eventually they will be. How do people who are in that role today cover that gap and do not get the risk of losing their job?
See, definitely for sure, one thing is the fact that we do not need people in doer role in the volume which we had in the past.
Absolutely.
If there were 10 people in the project in the doer role, we don't need those 10 people now.
Correct.
Maybe 2 or 3 are sufficient because most of the code at 70 to 80%, as of now, only 60 to 70%. And it's going to further improve. Maybe 80 to 90% of the code is going to be provided or produced by AI by simple giving prompts.
That's actually what Mark Zuckerberg mentioned as well, that Meta's almost 60 to 70% code is now written by AI.
We're already talking about it, that the developers are going to be replaced and AI is going to produce most of the code. Rather, only yesterday, I was asking AI, can you tell me how the applications have been changed in decades now? Right from 90s or rather early 80s when it was all assembly programming, then to operating system Windows, then came actually Windows-based application development, followed by that how things changed to web-based and then mobile-based and cloud-based, and now people are talking about AI. Initially AI applications were developed. Now over a period of time, we don't even have to write code. So the world is shifting from object-oriented to cloud-oriented to now intent-oriented programming.
It's amazing how we have literally just seen and been through each and every phase.
Yeah, I was probably fortunate, I would say, and it was not easy journey though, because too much of upgradation was needed at every phase. But point is, things are changing. You have to only express intent. Actually, I would ask the audience to type this, how do you see software development getting done in 2030 or 2035? And there is an astonishing answer which AI is going to provide. You have to be really careful about what is unfolding from AI. So there is a radical change which is going to happen. We do not need a lot of people in the doer role. We need more people in the architect role who understands entire application end to end, right? That is what is the need of the hour now. So right from the time the requirement comes in to the time the application is developed and deployed, all the things is what will involve very little manpower. Unlike now where we have got system analyst, we have got project manager, we have got software developer, basically engineers, testers, designers, automated test engineers. Like that, multiple roles are there in entire software development. So most of the times it is going to so happen that the same person is now performing multiple roles in the future.
Yes, that's actually very right.
So yes, and this is the reason I'm saying SDLC becomes much more important now than it would have been in the past. All the stages of SDLC, whether it is discovery and planning stage, which is the starting point, or whether it is technical design phase where we design the project, or whether it is the development and testing phase, right? Or whether it is the deployment and release phase, or eventually, let us say the post-launch and maintenance. All the stages are going to be very, very, very important going forward. So yeah, bookish knowledge will tell you there are different set of stages.
Before we even get inside deep into the stages, I personally think that how people are now going from a doer role, let's call the other role as a thinker, because that is majorly the entire job orientation of solutions architect, enterprise architect, or a technical architect, I would say. Eventually, people will go from a doer role to a thinker role if they want to sustain decently in the industry. Obviously, there are going to be some jobs of doer role, but not exclusively for everyone, right? What I want to know from you today in this particular podcast is that, like how you mentioned that SDLC is the entire long life cycle of 5 different phases, I would like you to concentrate on the phases that emphasizes the impact of a thinker role, which is the first 2 phases, which is probably the discovery and planning phase and the technical design phase. Because after that, the doer comes into the play anyway. So let's give an overview of what happens in these 2 particular phases for the audience that we have.
Okay, so let me actually break down the discovery and planning phase further into sub-stages.
So that's phase 1, by the way.
Yeah, the phase 1, discovery and planning, will further break it into phase 1. And this is, I'm giving you on the basis of one experience which we have gone through recently, where a project of 2 years, we have shrinked it to a development life cycle of 5 to 6 months.
Wow.
And one person who was actually a core developer in my organization, who has not really seen the entire project life cycle, is now taking care of this project end to end.
So he basically transitioned from a developer to an architect.
Precise.
So what you're talking, it's happening.
It's actually happening everywhere, not in just my organization, everywhere. So people are moving from doer, that is developer, to architect, thinker. And AI is supporting them left and right. How? Now, if I break that first phase, discovery and planning, into multiple sub-stages, the first would come stakeholder interviews and business case. Now, what exactly is this? This is the place where the customer's requirements are going to be understood by the business analyst. In reality, this is supposed to be done by business analyst, where he will do a question answer session with the customer, where he is going to understand what are the requirements of the project, what are the constraints of the project, what is the success metrics in the project, expectations of the stakeholder is supposed to be taken care of in the form of application. All these things the business analyst is going to understand in this particular phase. That is what is stakeholder interview and business case, we call it.
Okay.
Then the second one is the PRD, product requirement document. This is something very, very, very important stage. This is where actually the core features are going to be defined, whether they are functional requirement or non-functional requirement. This is where the objectives of the application are going to be provided. We are going to use this PRD as a reference document which will connect the customer's requirement into a technical requirement. Basically, this document is going to become the bridge which aligns the business needs with the technical direction.
And that bridge, basically, whoever writes this PRD? is the one who is the technical architect.
Not really. It's again actually the technical architect and business analyst together contributing to it. Yeah. But still major role is played by the business analyst only in this particular document also.
Okay.
Then the next comes in this particular phase is creating user stories and of course writing acceptance criterias. This is where actually we have to break the requirement into user focused tasks. We have to clearly define what is the requirement from the user's perspective. What is the condition on which this particular requirement is successful. So this user stories and acceptance criteria is the third phase. Then comes bringing the wireframes into the picture. We want to showcase how the UI of the application is going to look like. Now, this is the place where my team has learned that though they followed PRD, though they wrote user stories, but when they started showing the users the visualization of how the application is supposed to be, lot of additional inputs we were able to gather. And the beauty is what we were using Figma kind of tools and we didn't even have to create dummy wireframes. With tools like Figma, we were able to just write prompts and create real-time wireframes.
Absolutely.
In the background, the React code is getting generated. So I don't need an exclusive designer who can create wireframes for me anymore now. One person who understands the requirement of the customer from the PRD, who can be a developer as well, simply giving the right prompts, is able to create all the Figma UI, UX and creativity.
A little good English, I would say.
Yeah, true. And you can communicate with the customer consistently. So wireframes are supposed to be created. There, yes, we are having AI playing a very, very major role. Then also we will have to, now the project has to be, we have understood everything from the customer. Now we have to give a timeline to the customer. Now we have to give some kind of project estimate to the customer. So based on all that input which we have gathered and based on the wireframes which we have created, now it's very easy to figure out how much time the entire project is going to take. And moreover, with AI, again, it is just a prompt. Because so much AI has learned in the past that I'm able to give a prompt and the entire document in the way I can give it to the customer is produced. Absolutely. What is the effort involved? What is the timeline of the project? How the project is going to prioritize the features which we have to develop. So this particular document is again just like a prompt, and maybe based on the nature of the customer, based on the pocket size of the customer, we would also want to probably change certain parameters, certain values based on the urgency so that we do it personalization, but entire format of the document was ready.
So basically it's almost like a skeleton to a body, I would say.
Yeah, you have, through wireframes, you have given the skeleton. To construct that skeleton into a body, how much time it is going to take. That is what this particular document. So in no time, a very professional document was created. Now, small organizations don't have to maintain huge amount of templating and processes and structure. They are just supposed to follow these steps and they are able to create the document. Then actually after the effort estimation and time in the design and planning only, we wanted to create proper sprints because we already have the timeline. It's all about breaking the entire project into multiple sprints. Every 15 days, we want to showcase something to the customer, take their feedback and side by side develop the second phase, next sprint, make some small changes to the previous sprint, and we are able to follow, and sprints are also created by AI. You have to only tune it. You have to give to AI how many members you have in the team, what is the role of each member, and entire sprint document AI is able to create and give it to us. We can just take the output, which I can get it in the Jira format and import that sprint into Jira. So yes, that phase also reduced drastically. Then comes creation of technological stack, right? This is the final phase of stage one, where we needed to tell, okay, now that we know these are the sprints, this is how the application has to be delivered. We decided what is the tool to be used, what is the language to be used, what is the database to be used, what are the frameworks which are supposed to be used. All these things, basically we have to set the technical foundation. So this is the part of the phase one, discovery and planning.
I think one more point there is in the last part of this discovery planning is that this is when the quotation can be made, right?
That's what I said, estimation.
Correct. So the cost analysis of all the tools, technologies, and compute resources, etc. Then the quotation is given.
Exactly. Just before technology stack is decided, we can actually get the quote. So let me now very quickly summarize all the sub stages of stage one. That is, stage one is, let's say, discovery and planning. Sub stage one is stakeholder interviews and business case. Then we have got PRD, product requirement document. Then we create the user stories and acceptance criteria. Followed by that, we are supposed to create the basic wireframes and mockups. Then there are estimation of effort and timeline. And finally, we need to freeze the technological stack. Though technological stack actually can overlap in the next stage also.
Okay.
I mean, there is a thin layer which separates them. This goes into discovery and planning. Now the stage two or phase two, we call it. So these are all part of phase one.
So I would say that the two major roles that are being played over here is of a business analyst or a requirement analyst that takes the business requirement from the end client and then goes through all of these phases by collaborating with the technical architect or the solutions architect. Am I right?
Yes, you can say that way. But there are other roles also which are consultant.
Majorly these two.
Yes. See, there is basically responsibility majorly is of business analyst in most of these cases. Then we have got project managers also playing certain roles in different sub-stages. Technical architects are consulted, but they are not directly involved in this particular stage.
So it's more of a design and mock-up kind of a stage. Right?
Exactly. There is something called as RACI metrics. R is responsibility, A is accountability, C is consult, for I is informed. Basically, what we do is in SDLC, we'll create for each stage what role is responsible, accountable, consulted, or informative. A proper RACI matrix is there which will give clarity of who is responsible for what in each and every stage as well as sub-stages of SDLC.
So that matrix is going to accommodate almost all the kinds of roles.
Exactly. Clarity, role clarity document, we can also say that as. Now, problem is with AI, one role is doing multiple things. As a person, you become responsible in multiple roles, not in just one role. So number of people in the entire life cycle are reducing. More roles are being played by one individual. That is how it is constructed.
That's a very good way to look at it. Actually, it gives a lot of perspective to put it in form of a table and align. Like previously, a lot of roles were being looked at and assigned through that matrix. But today, because of AI, what is
roles will be there. Individuals will reduce.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are all part of phase one.
Now let's get to phase two.
Exactly. So in phase two, we have basically got technical requirement document. We have already created tech stack. We now have a proper technical requirement document. Followed by that, a high-level architecture diagram has to be created. A database schema has to be created. API contracts and endpoint definitions have to be created. And then finally, the secondary considerations are there. So these are basically 5 different steps. Now, if I elaborate, in the technical requirement document, which we also call it as TRD, we are supposed to translate the business needs into proper technical specifications. Basically, we are mapping the functional requirement into how the technology is going to be used for developing that. You call it as functional requirement or user stories. Mapping will be done. And a proper big diagram will be created. That's a high-level diagram, which shows how the components of the system are and how the data is going to flow through these components. And then we have got database schema, which is quite obvious. All the tables, what are the relationship between the tables, what can be the stored procedures, indexes which are required. All those are created in the database schema. Basically planned, I can say. Not yet created, they are still in the planning, right? And then we have got finally the API contracts and the endpoints definition, which leads to how one component is going to communicate with another component. And what kind of data is going to flow from one component to another component. So this is going to be one more important stage. And finally, as I said, the secondary considerations, like what are the possible vulnerabilities which can arise in the application? What are the solution to that? How will you protect by different certificates or use encryption keys? How are we going to make the application compliance, whether it is HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance or GDPR compliance, different types of compliance things is taken care of. So earlier, developers were not majorly involved in these stages. Developers were always involved in phase 3 or stage 3, that is development and testing. These were responsibilities of non-technical people or more who have good communication, good command over how things can work. But now I can use a developer to perform all these things with the help of AI. AI can teach them more in depth about each and every stage. AI can
Actually help them build every stage as well.
exactly right from the first document. I'm able to construct all the documents and place in one single folder. And beauty is I've just invested little time and I was able to write a generic prompt. And that generic prompt can probably create a proper document with proper details in proper format for each and every stage of these two. So I don't, honestly speaking, invest a lot now on business analyst unless the project is very vast, huge, and it is like enterprise grade application where the life cycle is very long. I don't have to go for a dedicated role of business analyst and then project manager. These are roles which are really going to be tough in the future with AI. Maybe developer who has got good enough knowledge in the industry and has been coding for quite some time with experience will have to probably adapt these roles and should be able to construct the application. So there is a lot of disruption which is going to happen with AI, and we are just supposed to wait and watch how things are going to unfold. We don't have choice. Even I'm not very sure how much disruption volume is going to happen and how the jobs will get displaced to a different kind of responsibility altogether.
I think somebody who is like a founder of AI or something like, he's recommended people to go from being engineers to literally a plumber today.
That's the depth. That's maybe too much, but yeah, there can definitely be disruption and everybody would be required to be ready to change or adapt the change which is unavoidable. So that is what is the foreseeing future of every developer. It's concerning, but it's not like they will lose the job. They have to just become ready for adapting the change. They cannot be saying, I've for years done this, so I'll stay like this. No. At the age of 50, I'm adapting, making changes every day to my knowledge. I'm learning new things. I'm ready to participate in new types of discussion, ready to implement those changes in the organization level also. So this is going to become the common scenario everywhere in the years to come.
I think the best part about this is that you're not just learning new things. The way you talk from your experience, it shows, and I have also seen around the organization how your action orientation is pretty strong. So my takeaway from this, as well as the audience takeaway, should be that although you're trying to learn new skill set, the action orientation should be really, really strong.
Exactly. Just learning theory and not applying is of no use. You learn 100%. You apply at least 50%. Just learning and not applying is criminal wastage of energy, time, money, everything.
So anyway, coming to the end of this podcast, let's say I would like to conclude by saying that, yeah, there is going to be a disruption in the entire technological space, rather every space. But being specific about developers, these are the people who are doers. Now they need to go to a thinker role, which will be more oriented towards jobs like technical architects, solutions architects, and people who are in these leadership roles. Coming to your SDLC, one thing that I have to pick up from this is now developers, more than having just skills to code, understanding the code and typing out code, that is absolutely not.
They are not needed for that.
Absolutely not.
They just need to do a review of a code generated and be sure that it's functional.
Correct. So these are the type of people that will need to get out of their comfort zone and start with the most basic thing, that is communication. If people don't know communication and good English today, the downfall is sure. Because, dude, at the end of the day, the world does work in English and you talk to AI in English as well. Plus, when you communicate with the stakeholders, you're able to converse better as well. So I would not like to make this uncomfortable for anyone, but this can be our
It is going to be a natural fact. See, the reason why India is so popular is because we adapt to English language, unlike China and Japan or maybe other countries who are not so, like I've been to Switzerland, they're not so comfortable talking in English. So the reason why a lot of work comes to India is because of our willingness to learn new things. And that is something which I'll advise the new generation.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, as much as technical depth is required today, being a generalist also matters. Understanding how to communicate, understanding how to speak, how to coordinate with the teams, because the major role that comes after just being a doer?
I would say we should advise every person, whether fresher or mid-level or experienced, to go deeper into the knowledge of SDLC and understand end to end. Multiple roles are what they are supposed to execute.
So it's been a really great time. Thanks for doing this and also sharing your experiences and knowledge. And yes, see you in the next one really, really soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.